to the Recovering Out Loud podcast. I'm your host, Charles Van Loucks, and today we have a very special guest returning. This is Mike Wagner, and we just had such great feedback about our episode that we had to invite you back and have another one. So, how you doing, Mike?
I'm okay. This is my opportunity to screw it up.
Yeah.
So I'll try not to do that.
Well, we covered some really interesting topics last time, and I found a couple that I wanted to dive into that I thought would be interesting. The first has to do with resistance in early recovery, kind of equaling denial in a way.
Yeah, I have found that in working in the field, you notice you notice those moments of resistance uh, well before the speaker is aware of the fact that they're actually pushing against the next step forward. And I think it's really a form of denial. The first experiences I had that I remember were those moments when a person says, "I'm sorry, I can't get into AA. I just don't get the God thing." And God is a mystery, of course. So I can appreciate the sincerity of that comment, but ordinarily it's it's covering up, and I don't want to. I'm not willing to go there yet. And there isn't necessarily embracing divine power, but it's just the uncertainty of the next step and what that's going to require of me. So that's denial. So I warn guys, when you hear yourself saying yes, but listen carefully, because that might very well be the doorway to your next relapse.
Right.
I'll go this far, but no further. I'm still very vulnerable to my addiction. I know I'm sorry that doesn't sound somewhat more conclusive than it does, but I do think it's an important invitation to look at that sense of yes, but, and what that's really saying.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. What does that really say? That there are limits, that they're willing to go, that there are. Now, here's the thing, right? We had no limits in our active addiction. We would do anything and everything to obtain our substance, right? That was our higher power. That was our God, you
Yeah.
know? And I think by having some kind of limit in your recovery, you're already kind of cutting yourself short, because the reality is you have to do everything that you used to for your substance plus some to regain your life, because it's such a big, daunting task. But the difference is, as we were talking about last time, right? The difference is that temporary moment of relief versus that permanent, lasting moment of relief, having our life back,
Yeah.
reclaiming things for our life, seeing our kids grow up, having this peace, and I think that that's the part that can be difficult to grasp in early recovery.
Well, what popped in my mind as you said that is that some of it is acknowledging that I'm through with all this shame. I can't bear this anymore. And the only way I can relieve myself of those regrets is to move forward, is to make progress. And just how much suffering are you willing to bear? Before you take responsibility and begin to learn how to take care of yourself.
Hmm.
I mean, I said this last time. It's for me, it was this phenomenon of becoming worthy of taking very good care of myself.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Well, some of it came from beginning to take care of myself and appreciating the progress I was making. That I was losing weight, I was getting fit, I was able to work better and harder and longer, and I got home on time. And, you know, when are you willing to begin to take care of yourself? And can you see those issues of resistance that keep you stopped, keep you
Mm.
stuck? In the
Yeah.
beginning, they're hard to acknowledge.
They are, and I've noticed that, sometimes it can even be just too large of a big pile of issues that we have to deal with,
Yeah,
and it's just there's too much, it's so overwhelming, we don't even know where to start. So we don't start, right? And that's why with my guys in my coaching work, I focus on, okay, let's not look at the whole picture. Let's zoom in on one specific
yeah.
thing and figure out a couple steps to completing that. Because then, if we can follow that model for our problems, we'll be checking things off our list left and right. And then they start to see progress. Then they start to see changes and those gifts of recovery,
Well,
and then they start to buy in.
Charles, we're all such vivid examples of this.
Mm,
In the beginning, you just have no idea what's possible. I mean, my best friends in this program have gone through profound transformations in their lives.
mm,
Some have lost their wives and gone through the agony of all that, through the financial crises that a divorce can be. One comes to mind. He has a better job than ever. He's got a girlfriend. Even his relationship with his divorced wife is back to a healthy friendship.
mm,
You just have no idea how damaging the addiction has been to your whole life. You give that up, and normality starts to return, and it's full of remarkable blessings. I
mm.
mean, I have a lot of examples.
Yeah.
People we share friendships with. Uh, you want to give up the potential of that kind of transformation? I mean, it's hard to see that and believe that in the beginning because everything looks so desperate. But that's the truth. You focus on that starting point and it expands as you do.
Mm,
I'm I have no contradictions to that actually. And I'm not pretending about life not still having its crises. That people still die and you can still get sick and all that still happens. But the potential of your life adventure starts to expand.
mm.
You don't want to miss that.
Oh,
Even though
absolutely.
that's probably just a faint hope in the beginning, it's really true.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, because I mean that comes down to, that adventure of life, us ourselves being the adventure, along the way. And, I think sometimes it can be just in terms of perspective. We can be looking at this whole recovery process as, oh my God, I messed up my life. I did this and that. I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. Negative, 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 right? We can stay in
Yeah,
that. We can be
exactly.
stuck in that and not go very far. Or we can look at it as, I am the adventure. I'm curious. How did I mess my life up? How can I return to
What
normality?
what might it look like?
Yeah.
What would it be like to actually be sober and well,
Mm,
psychologically, emotionally well?
right.
That doesn't happen in 24 hours. I need the therapy whether I want it or whether I resist that reality or not, I need community. I need a therapist, probably. I may even need some kind of spiritual orientation, whatever that is. And that isn't necessarily religion. I mean, it certainly could be, but it doesn't always look like religion. It, mostly it's, can I reach a state of wonder in my life?
Hmm.
I think I mentioned the last time that I heard this sermon by this wonderful preacher, and he opened it by saying, understand that the earth is spinning on its axis at 1,000 miles an hour. It's whirling around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour. And our solar system is moving through the galaxy, if I've got those terms in the right order, at 400,000 miles an hour.
Hmm.
Now, why are we just in a constant state of awe? I, my Our whole family was just in Thailand, and that's where one of my sons lives. And you look at the flowers and the intricacy and majesty of some of nature is overwhelming. We just don't pay attention.
Hmm.
You know, I'm so focused on myself, I don't see the majesty of the world.
Oh, absolutely. I had this experience that came to mind when I was in treatment, actually at Cedar. Um,
Mm.
it was based on my perspective because I had many different, versions of this as I completed my time through treatment. But let me set up the scene. I was walking from building to building, right, from the ADU to the cottage, right, and there was this field on the right. There was a bunch of dead grass, and there was one flower, nice and healthy, blooming up out of the middle of it, right? And I remember my first few times when I was still detoxing and feeling pretty crummy and everything, I would look at it and say, "Oh, look at all this stupid death. Just pluck that flower and chuck it." Blah blah blah. Very negative, right? And then later on, kind of toward the end of my time there, I stopped and I looked at that same scene and I thought to myself, "My God, such beauty growing out of just nothing but death all around it." And it's that memory has affected me to this day, and it reminds me to choose the lenses through which I view life very carefully, because
Oh,
it can
how
change what I see.
that's a beautiful comment. I mean, we're so fortunate to live in a place like Colorado.
Mm, yeah.
You know, it's been hot, right? I mean, really hot.
Oh yeah.
If you get up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, it's 60 degrees. There's not a cloud in the sky. Our low uh, humidity atmosphere, everything is crystal clear. It's absolutely beautiful.
Mm,
I never saw any of that when I was drinking.
right.
I was just
Exactly.
dealing with my hangover.
Right. Yep. That's true. It's funny. Yeah, it's all about perspective. Yeah, and it's I mean, it literally will change what we see. We'll interpret it differently. And if there is some type of sign, or message from our higher power, or, whatever you believe in, it could be missed in that moment because we're in a negative headspace and we're focused right here. We're not seeing all of this.
Yeah. Um, this sermon that the pastor opened by talking about the phenomenon of our universe, he reflected on his theme was when things you think are not supposed to happen, and he refers to a real crisis in his family that occurred a year ago, and how that all what the state of that crisis is now, and what a profound transformation occurred. And his point was, you really don't know what is supposed to happen. I wish I could quote this as he said it, but he something to the effect of, who are we to say what seeds of hope lie in in the moments in our life that we consider to be crises.
Mm, I love that.
We know that,
Yeah.
Charles. In our recovery, we've experienced that.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that I didn't define very well, but we know that we really don't know the outcome. I may not have control over all this, but it is an adventure
Mm,
and it can be very exciting.
yeah. Absolutely. And being able to come upon those gifts in recovery, or seeds as you put them. I feel like that can really make the journey worth it. And for people who are early on in your recovery or considering recovery, those things do exist. And that's part of this whole remaining open-minded and willing and curious, is trying to find those things that can help us reclaim our life, that can help us, right our wrongs, clear the wreckage of our past, build a new future, all that stuff. Those are all hidden within the muck, right? But we have to get
Yeah.
through all that. We have to get that
I'm
all out
I'm
of our.
gonna I'm gonna share something with you that just happened yesterday that's happening now that will really document how weird I really am.
I love it.
Uh, my daughter and her family are here visiting because her husband, who's a physicist, he works for NIST, which is one of the country's major laboratories. They have a huge laboratory in Boulder and another one where he is in Gaithersburg, Maryland. I mean, he's here to deliver a talk, which he presented today at 1 o'clock. I think there are 3,000 guys from all over the world, and some of them would be present for his talk. Jason is the only member of his family to finish college, and he has a PhD in physics.
Wow.
And I hate to admit this, but he's probably brilliant. But we were at the convention center where he is, going around in this, what do they call it? The river? This swimming pool that's just a circuitous route,
Oh, lazy
like
river.
a river, lazy river,
Yeah,
exactly.
love those.
And, and here I am with our two grandsons, my daughter, who's a therapist, her husband, who's a genuine scientist, and I'm going around the lazy river with my other son, and these two little girls notice this old man on the inner tube, and they start to sneak away from me, as if to say, see if you can catch us. And I was so charmed by that. I thought, this is remarkable. I'm I'm an old man, and I thought it's too bad they're not 20 or 30 years older.
Right.
So that's the real White Wagner.
Oh, I love it so much. You and
But
me both,
just
brother. I love it.
consider the wonder of all those circumstances. I'm
Yeah.
81 years old, going down this huge water slide and having a great time. I'm I'm I am I am an old man fascination of these little kids. I'm with my daughter and grandsons, and I'm just an old drunk, man.
Mm,
I mean, do you want to miss this?
mm.
I don't know what the outcome of your adventure is going to be, but I know mine has been bewildering.
Yeah.
So you want to give all that up for a bottle of vodka?
Right.
Well, I was trying to, but fortunately, I got over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you have that permanent relief. You have the ability to show up, right? To
Yeah,
reclaim your life. I mean, so much. It's beautiful.
and I'm still pretty crazy, but
Yeah.
I'm
Me too.
enjoying it. And
Exactly.
I'm not dangerous anymore.
Yeah.
or at least not as dangerous.
I love it. Yeah, that's fun. I definitely relate to that. I enjoy being a little bit weird, and even back in the day, I remember not wanting to be normal. Feeling like I was different, and not
Yeah.
feeling like if I was normal, that would be like the worst thing ever. Oh my god, blah blah blah. And I don't know. I think that helps me be comfortable in my own skin today. And kind of
Well, for me, I don't need to take myself too seriously.
absolutely,
I'm
yeah,
still I don't like other people saying you're a character, Wagner, but I like being a character.
right,
I don't,
yeah,
maybe I shared this the last time, but I was calling on a company a good number of years ago with our chief investment officer. And as we had a meeting with the chief financial officer of this very successful company. And as we were leaving the office, a voice came out of an office and said, Mike Wagner, I haven't seen you since we were in Cleveland together and you were trying to push a piano into the swimming pool. And instead of being shamed, as I would have earlier in my addiction, I said, That's impossible. I've never been to Cleveland.
yeah. I've pushed
And
many
as
of
we were leaving, I
pianos.
said, Let me ask you a question. Was there anyone playing the piano?
Yeah, right.
I wasn't a bit ashamed of that behavior.
Yeah,
That had all healed with me. I didn't care anymore because that isn't me anymore. I
right.
mean, now I could get the piano into the swimming pool.
Easily,
Then I
easily.
couldn't.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point that you bring up though, right? Drawing that line in the sand of this is the old me, this is the new me, and
Yeah.
proving to ourselves that we are a new person, a genuinely different person in our recovery. It can make those things easier, because then we know like, oh yeah, that was the old me. The old me, and I was crazy, yeah, for sure. But I think that it also can help with forgiveness, right? I think it can help with starting over, rebuilding our life, showing ourselves that we are indeed worthy of this new life. And we're going to take it seriously, because a cornerstone of my own recovery today is not taking stuff too seriously. There's enough in life that I absolutely have to take seriously. I don't have a choice,
Yeah.
right? So I don't need to add more to that. I don't have to pile it on and
That's right.
stress myself out.
I have this figure eight on the desk right by my right hand here that says, take a deep breath.
Yeah,
That actually works.
right.
Before I go crazy, I can stop
Yeah,
and that gives me at least a moment to figure out just how badly I'm going to behave next.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that pause, planning those two roads out, that whole thing. Absolutely. And I think, it can be difficult sometimes, right? Like we're in the middle of a, emotionally charged situation or whatever the case is, an argument of some sort. It can be hard in that moment to say, okay, let me hold on for a
Oh
second. Let me
yeah,
think logically versus emotionally. Okay. But if we actually pause and we take a moment for ourselves, we take a break, return to it, we can decipher between, all right, here's the emotional side, here's my reactiveness, and here's the logical thought that I was trying to convey. Let me get back to that. Let me get back to the point, and convey that,
exactly.
you know.
I'm not my rage. I That's a choice.
Hmm,
I mean, it is a time when everybody see it on the highways. Everybody's kind of pissed off,
sure.
but I have a choice. And when I acknowledge that I have a choice, that gives me a moment to choose.
Hmm,
I don't just respond compulsively like I did with my drinking. I didn't really have a choice. The brain and a lot of my neurology, physiology was very dependent upon that sensation of relief. That's not
Mm.
true anymore. And that's powerful, you know, that's a form of surrender, I think.
Hmm.
That I can surrender to the moment.
Hmm.
And that's not weakness, that gives me power.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think being able to recategorize surrender as a form of power can be powerful because, if we're stuck in one of our old facades of who we thought we used to be in our active addiction, it's
Yeah,
going to be really difficult to surrender and move past that and get to a different place where we're a different person and truly open up and peel away all those facades and all that stuff. But if we can instead view surrender as, I don't want this life anymore. This life has
exactly.
caused damage.
Yeah.
I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to start a new life right here and move forward.
We have a guy in treatment who was in the military, and he has a lot of concern about this whole idea of surrender. And I said, I can imagine having been in the military,
Right.
but what about surrendering to the higher authority of your commanding officer? Is that weakness? I mean, isn't that courage and patriotism, discipline? That's powerful. And it's not throwing down your arms, it's maybe opening them up, you know.
Hmm.
I I don't like vulnerability sounds potentially like weakness, but it's not. It's it's who I am.
Yeah.
I came to believe in a power greater than myself. Hallelujah.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
did
And
I ever
it's,
figure out what that power was? Maybe not. I mean, not absolutely. I have a hope that it's a divine being, but I don't know for certain that it is. But I have experienced that power.
hmm,
It's something greater than myself. I'm a beneficiary of that, to be sure.
hmm, yeah. Yeah. We were speaking in our pre show meeting about living in your own experience and, how we can almost tie that to, losing our identity in a way and kind of having to start over a little bit,
Mm.
and I just find that to be initially a very intimidating thought, right? But if you really dive into it and think about it, the identity that we had is not who we wanted to be anyway. We had
Yeah,
built up some of those facades to nurture and keep our addictions safe, and to keep ourselves safe even at times. And
yeah.
to shed all that away and start fresh seems daunting, but it's a gift. I mean, that's, you can't really do that otherwise.
You know, Charles, this is a dangerous topic, but I wonder in that moment of whatever it is, truthfulness, surrender, whatever the term is, there is freedom.
Hmm.
And I experienced that in my early recovery. When I finally went to treatment and got that I was an alcoholic, some of that compulsion softened almost immediately. Not completely, but it was like I stepped over a certain line, that I went from resistance to the pretense of not really being out of control to a full acknowledgement of my vulnerability. And in that moment, there was some real relief.
Hmm.
I don't know if everybody feels experiences that, but I suspect that they do. I mean, it's not like a transformation, but there was a moment of, let's say, at least clarity. And even I think I felt more than that. I wasn't quite as dependent at that moment as I was the moment before.
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah.
too spooky to
It's very spooky, but I love
claim?
it. No, and you know what? I think that I also experienced something like that too when, I was, on my way to treatment, and I had this idea of treatment built up in my mind
Oh yeah,
where I was going to be locked in a padded room. They were going to put me in a straitjacket, like the whole 9 yards, right? None of which is true, by the way, people. There's no
yeah.
lockdown facilities for
That wouldn't
drug
work.
abuse. It doesn't work. Yeah. So, but I remember like being so intently fearful of that whole experience. And when I got in and they started doing my check in and all that, I remember there was a nurse there, and she started to talk. She could tell I was terrified. I was really scared. And she started to talk to me about her recovery journey and all the things that she had been through and how she was actively in recovery herself. And in that moment, I felt, just such um, relief and feeling comfortable with her and knowing that I was in good hands and knowing that I could take a breath and I could let go of control a little bit and say, okay, you guys take the wheel. I don't know where to go. Help guide me,
Yeah,
and
well, pretty powerful moment.
yeah,
I mean, we're back to surrender. Okay,
absolutely.
I give up. What's next?
Right.
I knew those nurses at Cedar, and boy, I really admired them. I
Yeah,
felt like some of them were the best part of the staff.
absolutely.
They could connect with a client in a way that took the rest of us a long time to get to, it seems sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that was a moment where, I felt clear in the terms of I no longer wanted my life, my old life. In that moment, I realized that I'd come to a place where I could reclaim who I was and who I wanted to be. And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's, I don't, I mean, you don't have to be an addict to need that moment.
Mm,
It's a gift. And if alcoholism got me to that moment, I'll take it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it,
right.
but I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the gift of this journey.
Right.
That I come out the other side of the tunnel a person that I had no vision of.
Mm,
I had all these I had all these descriptions that were imposed upon me. I'm supposed to do this and that and this and that, and none of it was valid. I didn't have the capacity for a lot of it. But you come out the other end of this journey and you think, "Holy smoke! So this is who I am."
mm, mm,
Well, I have to think about that. Am I disappointed or not?
right. Yeah. And it's interesting. I agree with you. I think that, for a long time before treatment or any of that stuff, for a long time I did feel different. I did feel not necessarily a part of. I'd always kind of felt, a little bit lost. Like I remember utilizing, career coaches and all these
Yeah,
different tools back
me
then.
too.
And yeah. And to go through this process of addiction and recovery and land at the answer that we were seeking all along, It's amazing. It's transformational. And you know what? I think you're right. I think there is a way to get to that without addiction and recovery and all that stuff. I think if somebody can follow a similar approach in terms of stopping, slowing down, going through their life with a professional, seeing what areas are impacting them negatively, growing from those, changing, I think they can find something similar. But it takes that vulnerability. It takes that, hey, I need help. It takes that,
Yeah.
I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And being, you know, humble enough to accept help from somebody, because help is not, it's not a bad thing to need help. It's, we're reaching for something higher when we ask for help. And
Well, exactly. I look back on my early career with disappointment that I should have been higher on the list, you know.
me
And not
too.
long ago, in an exercise at Cedar, uh, I had this remarkable insight that what I really treasure about my life are the relationships I've had.
Hmm.
In those early years in my career, I was surrounded by the most inspiring professionals of my entire career. I was at near the bottom of the list, or even at the bottom of the list, and that's all I could think about. I was drinking, of course. When the truth was, I was surrounded by some of the most inspiring people of my entire life. I couldn't see it. I could
Hmm.
only see that I was disappointed in my performance and I should go get another drink.
Hmm. And you know what? For our, viewers out there, how many of you can relate to that? Right? How many of you have been stuck in your own head to the point where you can't see something right in front of you like that? And that's kind of what we're talking about with perspective, and trying to change our perspective to broaden our view and allow
Oh,
more
exactly,
you know.
exactly. There's this great quote in the beginning of that book, The Spirituality of Imperfection, says, Rabbi Zispa said, in the next life, they will not ask me, why were you not Moses? They will ask me, why were you not Zispa? Why
Mm,
were you not yourself?
mm, wow.
That's our gift,
Yeah.
my precious life. They ain't no more Mike Wagners. And many might say, thank goodness. But nonetheless, it is my precious existence. I I have to do the best I can to celebrate that.
Yeah.
And I can't do that as a drunk.
Yeah.
Because I'm all covered up, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, that's I think a great an uplifting point to end our episode on. I'm so glad you returned to do another episode and and you had fun and all that. And
Don't
I
show it to anyone. Okay? Don't show it to anyone.
right, no, just for us, just for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or tell them that Mike Wagner is an alias. That's not really my name.
right, no, yeah,
Right.
no. But yeah, I look forward to diving into more stuff. I feel like every time we get into a conversation, we come upon some really interesting stuff, and we explore
You're
some.
good at this, Charles. It ain't me. It's
Oh, thanks.
you know how to draw it out. You
Oh,
know how to make me comfortable. So
well, thank you.
who
I
knows what
appreciate
I'm going
that.
to say next?
Yeah, I look forward to learning what that is.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay.
And for our viewers, if you guys have any comments, questions, anything like that, just post them below, and we'll see you on the
Please
next one.
do. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I mean, if you have objections to what I, you say, oh, baloney, I'd like to hear that.
absolutely. Yeah,
I
let's get
really
a
like to hear that. That's important.
yeah. Well, absolutely, because then we can get a conversation going, and I feel like
Exactly.
that's where
And
perspectives and
challenge. I mean, I don't have all the answers, for heaven's sake.
well, sure, sure,
My wife is laughing. She isn't here, but she's laughing anyway.
yeah, she knows. I love it. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you, and see
Thank you.
y'all on the
Great.
next one.